On my 7th anniversary with Adrian, he didn't come home. His male secretary called, and I could hear Adrian's irritated, dismissive voice in the background. After 7 years, the novelty wears off for anyone. I'm sick of it, so I gave him his wish and got the hell out. But then he went crazy, kneeling in front of me and begging for forgiveness. Louis, don't leave me. I'm begging you. On our 7th anniversary, I sat staring at the gift I'd bought for Adrian. It was a limited edition designer tie. Solid colored, the same classic style Adrian had worn since high school. Back at our high school graduation, a cocky-looking Adrian had leaned in close to me. My tie's loose. He was too close for comfort. We weren't together yet, so I instinctively took a step back. But he grabbed my hand. Class president, from now on, will you be the one to tie my tie for me? His eyes were fiery and sincere, burning with all the heat of summer, and he lived up to it. He pursued me passionately and confessed his feelings without hesitation. He did everything in his power to show me he loved me, but now 7 years had passed. I glanced at the time on my phone. It was 2:30 a.m. He hadn't come home. The dark screen lit up. It was a call from Adrian's secretary. He was a recent grad, a young man with a soft, almost pitiful smile. My hand tightened around the phone as I remembered what I'd seen the last time I went to Adrian's office. The tall, handsome man was looking down, his gaze gentle as he watched the slightly smaller young man in front of him, whose fingers were skillfully adjusting his tie. I was standing just outside the door, and a sharp pain shot through my heart. That night, when Adrian came home, I saw the tie knot, completely different from how I do it. I stopped him and got straight to the point. Can you fire your secretary? My eyes were locked on his face, studying his every reaction. His brow furrowed, and then he let out an impatient sigh. He tossed his suit jacket onto a chair and grabbed my hand. Louis, you never get involved in my work. Why all of a sudden? I didn't say a word, just let my gaze fall to his tie. He froze for a second. Then, looking a bit guilty, he loosened the tie and tossed it aside. Came loose at the office, so I just tied it again myself. Right? I don't get involved in your work. Hearing me agree, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But I want you to fire your new secretary. Does that upset you? Adrian paused, then irritably let go of my hand and stood up, as if to prove his innocence. Why would it upset me? I just don't get why you'd suddenly ask me to fire him. Louis, don't you trust my love for you? He looked down at me, demanding an answer. I lifted my head, my gaze stubborn. So you can't do it? We stared at each other for a long moment before he sat down beside me, frustrated, and said loudly, "Fine, I'll fire him tomorrow. Are you happy now?" I wasn't. My expression must have given me away, because he leaned in to kiss me. My body started to respond out of habit. But then the image of that young man's blushing face flashed in my mind. Had Adrian kissed him like this, too? Adrian, who had just been getting in the mood, looked at me with desire in his eyes. My pale, slender hand pushed against his chest in protest.
Adrian, I'm tired.
His brow furrowed, and his face twisted with anger as he turned and walked away. Looking at his soured expression, I suddenly felt that even after 7 years together, I still didn't really know him. As my eyes swept over his features, which had matured so much over the years, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. After high school, Adrian and I went to the same university. He was different from me. He was a golden boy, the heir to a major corporation. Even if he didn't take over the company, he had countless options. Me? I was just a kid from a regular family, burdened with my parents' high hopes and their almost tyrannical control. The only time I ever rebelled was when I decided to study art. My mom said art is for rich people. How can we afford that? Just listen to your father and me. We wouldn't steer you wrong, would we? My dad said, if you insist on studying that, then you can consider yourself without parents. Your mother and I won't give you a single penny. Their words were sharp, their faces cold, as if my disagreement would automatically sever our family ties. When it came time to declare my major, I hesitated for a long time, but ultimately, I chose the future I wanted. It wasn't really about what I studied. I just wanted to choose my own path in life, for once. The day I left with my suitcase, all I had was a few $100s I'd saved up. My first job was as a server in a small diner, waiting tables, washing dishes. The pay wasn't great, but the upside was that I could live in a tiny 20-square-foot storage closet in the back. On the other side of the wall lived a little stray dog the owner had taken in, just like me. His name was Lucky. A few days later, Adrian showed up at the diner, having found me somehow. He saw me standing by the door in my thin shirt, holding a tray, and he just burst into tears. He grabbed my wrist, sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. "Louis, please come with me. I promise I'll always be good to you." The customers and the owner all stared at us curiously. I pulled my hand away from his and told him seriously, "This is my own life." When Adrian left, a part of me was sad. Sad that I couldn't return his passionate feelings, and sad that I couldn't change my current situation. We were from different worlds, you can't force things like that. The next day, Adrian showed up at the diner with his own suitcase, his eyes shining with a light that could burn me. "Louis, if you won't come with me, then I'll stay here with you. You don't have to move. Let me come into your world." At 19, Adrian's entire world revolved around Louis. He ignored my cold exterior, using his raw passion to break through my defenses. Once he was inside, he carefully sealed the opening behind him. Then he smiled and told me, "It's okay. You don't have to change. Just let me be the one to change." And now he had broken his promise. Adrian promised he'd fire that secretary, but he didn't. My work kept me busy, and I spent long hours in the studio every day. The day I finished my new piece, I suddenly realized I hadn't seen Adrian in a week. I called him. It rang for a while before he finally picked up. His voice sounded rushed. "What's up, Louis?" I froze. Adrian seemed to realize how cold he sounded, because his tone immediately shifted to a playful tease. "Finally decided to leave your beloved studio and give me a call? There's an art exhibition opening in 3 days. Want to come?" I heard the faint rustle of clothing on the other end. Adrian's voice was a little hoarse. "I probably can't make it. I have to go on a business trip in 3 days to sign a deal. I'll make it up to you next time." My fingers tightened around the phone. I fought back the unease in my heart and nodded. "Okay." The phone was carelessly tossed onto a table, but the call wasn't disconnected. Through the receiver, I could hear two people's urgent, breathless kissing. It was the male secretary's voice. Having done the exact same thing with Adrian before, how could I not know what they were doing? My fingers trembled as I hung up the phone. My heart finally shattered. 7 years of history, defeated by the thrill of something new. It was almost laughable. The call connected before I could speak, and I heard someone ask Adrian, "Hey Adrian, I thought you hated going out for these work dinners. What's with you lately?" Adrian didn't answer, but someone else chimed in. "I know, right? You used to have Louis attached at the hip. You two have a fight or something." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. "We didn't fight. I'm just a little bored." My heart seized, even though it had already been broken once. Hearing the words from his own mouth still hurt so much I couldn't breathe. Adrian's voice came through, laced with irritation and a hint of disgust. Back then, Louis was like an ice prince. His looks and personality were exactly my type. But we've been together too long, and he doesn't know how to please anyone. After 7 years, the novelty wears off for anyone. I'm sick of it. He kept talking to his friends, but a buzzing filled my ears, and I couldn't hear another word. I looked around our home, at every little thing we'd collected over 7 years, and suddenly it all felt completely alien. A sharp pain in my stomach cut through my thoughts. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw up, feeling like I was emptying my insides. So filthy. Tears, a purely physical reaction, streamed down my cheeks and onto my shirt. When I first found out Adrian was cheating with his secretary, I was still thinking about our 7 years together, weakly pretending I didn't know. But now, this was a punch to the gut that shattered my last illusion. Adrian didn't love me anymore, or at least not as much. He had grown up. He was no longer the boy who would have done anything to be a part of my life. It was time to end this. That night, I packed up all my things, including every little decorative item I had ever brought into our home. Anything that was just mine, I took with me. Anything that was ours, I threw in the trash. Before I left, I even called a cleaning service to erase every last trace of myself, as if I had never been a part of Adrian's world at all. I was walking down the street at 4 in the morning. The wind was strong, whipping my semi-long, curly hair into a mess. I stood by the bridge, my eyes a little red. The moon was huge tonight, and I felt like I was right back on that day after graduation, homeless and alone. A motorcycle roared past me, impossibly cool. After speeding a few hundred feet down the road, it turned around and pulled up right behind me. The rider took off his helmet, revealing a head of striking red hair, still damp with sweat. The bold-looking young man tilted his head slightly. "Louis?" I turned, my hair sticking to my pale face in the wind. "Do you know me?" The young man's eyes sparkled, and he gave me a meaningful smile. "I've known you for a long time. Nowhere to go?" A little stunned and flustered, I nodded. He leaned his hands on the handlebars of his bike, a mix of casual and forceful, and gestured with his head toward the back seat. "Wanna get out of here?" His tone was casual, but his Adam's apple bobbed nervously. I was taken aback, thinking he was joking. I gave a faint smile and replied just as casually, "Sure." He seemed surprised that I'd agreed. He swung his leg off the bike and was in front of me in 3 quick steps. His face was sharp and young. Up close, he was half a head taller than me. He blinked, suddenly looking flustered. "If you agree, I have to test it out first." "Test it out?" I looked up at him, confused. He backed me against the railing, then leaned down and bit my lip. My eyes flew open in shock, but he covered them with his hand. "Didn't he ever teach you to close your eyes when you kiss?" His voice was sour, but his lips were like a hurricane. My hands, which had tried to push him away, were twisted behind my back and held tight. When he finally let go, he was blushing from his ears all the way down to his neck. It wasn't until he pulled me onto the back of his motorcycle, put a helmet on my head, and had me wrap my arms around his waist that it all started to sink in. I had just decided to leave my boyfriend of 7 years, and now I was hooking up with a guy I just met. And we had kissed. My heart was pounding in my chest. His place was a penthouse apartment downtown. He pulled me urgently by the wrist, pushed open the door, and pinned me against it. His fingers slipped under the hem of my shirt, teasing and lighting fires everywhere they touched. My lips were swollen and red from his kisses. I grabbed his wandering hand. Having second thoughts? He was breathing heavily, but his eyes were locked on mine. Looking into his eyes, my mind flashed back to the phone call with Adrian, to the sticky, intimate sounds of those two on the other end. My hand trembled and let go. In front of this man I just met, I slowly but firmly undid the buttons of my shirt.
No regrets.
Whether it was leaving home back then, falling in love with him, or leaving him decisively now, I had no regrets. Our hot bodies pressed together, the cool glass of the floor-to-ceiling window against my back. Behind me, the city lights twinkled. In front of me was a torrential onslaught. My fingers weakly gripped his shoulders, leaving pale pink marks behind. The night was decadent and dazzling. When I woke up, my body was stiff. I was on my side, an arm wrapped tightly around my waist, holding me so close there wasn't an inch of space between us. Sensing I was about to slip away, he pressed his body closer, grinding against me slightly. His voice was hoarse. "Where do you think you're going?" I blushed and tried to push him away. "I have to get to the studio." To be honest, the moment I woke up, I felt a pang of regret. I'd never really liked anyone else. All my feelings had been for Adrian from the very beginning. I'd never gotten too close to other people. A strange person, a strange bed, a strange pleasure. It all made me a little panicked. His arm loosened. I didn't dare look back at him and just grabbed a towel and bolted for the bathroom. The moment I shut the door, I saw the red-haired man on the bed, not even bothering with a blanket, brazenly showing himself off to me. My face instantly turned bright red. After a night of his advances, my body still bore the marks of his invasion, sore and swollen. The water from the showerhead streamed over me. Suddenly, I heard my familiar ringtone from outside. I quickly dried off. As I pushed the door open, I saw the man from last night had already answered my phone. Adrian's panicked voice came through the speaker. "Louis, where did you go? Why are all your things gone from the apartment?" I rushed over to grab the phone, but the man pulled me into his arms with one hand. "Ow, that hurts." My nose bumped against his shoulder, and it stung. I couldn't help but let out a small groan, which Adrian heard on the other end. "Louis, where are you? What are you doing?" he yelled, sounding like he was losing his mind. Those were the same questions I had wanted to ask him that day. What was he doing? What was he doing with that male secretary on the other end of the phone? My lips parted and closed, but in the end, I could only manage a bitter smile, not knowing how to answer. In bed. 3 simple words. Both Adrian and I froze. The redhead sneered with contempt. "Mr. Pei is a grown man. Don't tell me you don't know what 2 men are doing in bed with no clothes on. You dare touch him." Adrian roared, a powerless rage in his voice. I stared up at the man in stunned silence. He cupped my chin, and as his lips pressed against mine, he made loud, deliberate kissing sounds. He held the phone right next to my face, making sure every explicit sound was transmitted clearly to the other side. "Louis, you dare cheat on me." In response, the redhead pulled away from me and gave Adrian 2 simple words before hanging up. "Asshole." He hung up and immediately turned off the phone. He frowned. "You're an artist. How can your taste be so bad? How did you know I'm an artist?" I paused. I suddenly remembered he'd said last night that he'd known me for a long time. His large hands gripped my waist, pulling me into his lap. I instinctively resisted, thinking he wanted more. But instead, his warm hands settled on my lower back and began to rub it gently. "I kept you up all night. You must be exhausted, right?" My face turned red as I thought about last night's almost vengeful roughness and our abandon in front of the window. When did you first meet me?" The hand on my back stopped. "My name is Ryder. As for when I met you, I'll tell you later." He got up, washed, and got dressed, tying his striking red hair back. "Want to go for another ride?" I blushed and instinctively scooted back on the bed, waving my hands. "I can't." Ryder froze for a second, then burst out laughing. His red hair moved in beautiful waves as he shook with laughter, until tears came to his eyes. He held up his motorcycle keys and grinned mischievously. "As much as I'd love to go another round with you, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to handle it." I instantly realized my mistake. The motorcycle was fast, and I held on to his strong waist, a little scared. The wind rushed at us, but Ryder's body blocked it completely, making the hem of his jacket flap wildly. I didn't cry when I decided to leave home. I didn't cry when I heard Adrian cheating on the phone. I didn't cry when I decided to give up on him and our 7 years together. But when he shielded me from the wind, the tears suddenly started to fall. Even if the world is harsh and the road is long, if you're determined and brave enough, who's to say the future will be worse? You have to see it to find out, right? The tightness in my chest finally released. I spread my arms to the wind and screamed, "Adrian, you bastard, go to hell." The sudden breaking made me lurch forward, and I instinctively hugged Ryder's waist tighter. He lifted his helmet visor and raised an eyebrow at me. "Shouting another man's name on my bike? But since I like you, I'll forgive you." He said it casually, but when he turned around, I caught a glimpse of his bright red ears. I thought when he said he liked me, he meant he liked my performance last night. When I got off at the studio, Ryder stayed on his bike with his helmet off. He looked kind of hot, and people passing by were sneaking glances at him. I took a few steps, then heard him call out, "Louis, I'll call you." I took a few more steps, then suddenly spun around, ran back, and threw my arms around his waist, burying my face in his chest. "Ryder, thank you," I said sincerely. "Thank you for showing up at my lowest point and giving me warmth." When I let go, his face was beet red. He seemed completely dazed and didn't move for a long time. Just as I was about to go inside, I heard him mutter resentfully, so sly, looking at me with those eyes. My good mood vanished the moment I pushed open the studio door. There was Adrian, in a suit that reeked of alcohol, his pale face marked by a sleepless night. He looked like a lost puppy, just like he had when he first came looking for me all those years ago. For a moment, I was lost in the memory. Hearing the door open, Adrian shot up and rushed over, grabbing my shoulders forcefully. Where were you last night? Who was that man? I didn't speak, just quietly looked up at him. He looked terrible, a stark contrast to my own flushed, healthy face. When I didn't answer, he shook my shoulders, his voice roaring with anger. Say something, Louis. Where were you yesterday? Were you really with that man? His grip hurt, but I felt incredibly calm. Yes, I was with Ryder. Adrian's hands froze. His whole body went rigid, and his eyes instantly turned bloodshot. How could you? Why couldn't I? He said he loved my performance last night, said I was irresistible. We went at it from the doorway to the window and finally to the bed. Adrian looked like he couldn't accept it. He weakly let go of me and stumbled back a few steps. I followed him, continuing in a matter-of-fact tone. He said I don't have to please anyone. He said he'd never get sick of me. Adrian, is that what you were thinking when you were with your secretary in the office? Stop it, he yelled, his voice rising sharply. His voice trembled, like a deeply devoted man who had been grievously wounded. You knew everything? I stared right into his eyes, at the cowardice he refused to face. Yes, everything. From you not coming home to you hooking up with your secretary, and even what you said to your friends last night. I heard every single word. Adrian reached for me, but I sidestepped his hand. You think I cheated and you're angry, but you know what? I think you're disgusting. Adrian, I was happy during our 7 years together, so I'm asking you politely now. Get the hell out of my studio.
Impossible.
Adrian screamed, looking manic. We were together for 7 years. You're breaking up with me over one little mistake? Even if I did cheat, didn't you? If anyone's at fault, it's both of us. I'm not breaking up. I will never break up with you. I looked at Adrian calmly and suddenly thought Ryder was right. How could I have been so blinded by a little warmth back then? Adrian, let's just make this a clean break. I turned to open the door and kick him out, but he grabbed me from behind. I struggled, but I couldn't break free. The next second, the door was pushed open from the outside. Someone gently pulled my hand, and I stumbled right into Ryder's arms. The moment I was steady, Ryder's fist slammed into Adrian's face. The tie holding his hair back snapped, and his red hair flew loose, dancing like flames in the air as he threw punch after punch. Ryder. I grabbed his hand, my eyes cold as I looked at Adrian, who was too beaten to fight back. Just go. We were dating, not getting a divorce. We don't need both signatures to end this. Don't ever show your face in front of me again. The sight of you makes me sick. Adrian, disheveled and red-eyed, left the studio. I pulled a still fuming Ryder over to a chair in the lounge area to treat his knuckles. As I dabbed ointment on his joints, his untied hair kept blowing in his face. He swatted at it impatiently, like a kid. Why did you come back? I knelt by his knees and looked up at him. He frowned, his voice muffled but honest. You turned me on. I came back because I wanted to kiss you senseless. I blushed and coughed, feeling awkward. You were listening for a while?
Yeah.
A strand of red hair blew across his face again. Watching him battle his own hair was kind of funny. I stood up, grabbed a pencil and used it to pin his hair back. He sat still for me. After I was done, he suddenly wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me into his lap. Our bodies were pressed together. He rested his chin on my shoulder, his arms locked firmly around my waist. Louis, I wish I'd met you before he did. I paused, then smiled. You might have just become the next Adrian. Ryder instantly gritted his teeth, his voice angry but firm. I'm not him. Even if I fell out of love, I would never say such cruel things to someone I once loved. Saying he's sick of you, or that you don't know how to please anyone, that's all bullshit. It's because he's a piece of trash who doesn't want to take the blame, so he pushes it all onto you. He turned me to face him, Ryder's eyes seemed to hold a flame that could set a person on fire with just a glance. You did nothing wrong. He's the one who's wrong. Louis, stop loving him. My brush moved across the canvas, but something was always missing. I sighed and put the brush down. I'd been thinking about breaking up with Adrian for a long time. That phone call just solidified my decision. The days after we split were surprisingly not as hard as I'd imagined. Instead, Ryder's earnest face kept flashing through my mind. Louis, stop loving him. My head ached a little. Ryder's attitude toward me felt overly serious. Ryder was great, but I had just ended a 7-year relationship. The thought of jumping right into a new one was overwhelming. I'll just think about it more. I gathered myself and continued preparing for my weekend art show. The last one was someone else's, but this one was my own solo exhibition, so it was incredibly important to me. On the day of the show, after greeting my university professor, a few classmates, and some well-known artists I knew, I turned and saw Adrian at the entrance with his male secretary. I frowned, feeling a little nauseous. What? Did that man of yours, the one who'll never get sick of you, not even bother to come to your exhibition? The jealousy in Adrian's eyes was unmistakable. I paused for a second, then suddenly flashed a brilliant smile at someone behind him. Welcome to my exhibition. Adrian froze. Seeing my open arms, he ignored the pale face of his secretary behind him and started to reach for me, his arms trembling. The next moment, Ryder pushed him aside from behind. Adrian stumbled, looking back at us in disbelief. Ryder pulled me into his arms and then gave Adrian a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Some people have no shame. Is he yours? Keep your hands to yourself. As we turned to leave, Adrian tried to grab me again. Ryder seized his wrist, squeezing hard. His voice was menacing. I'm warning you, this is Louis's first solo exhibition. Don't you dare cause a scene, or else your whole family can just go bankrupt. Ryder let him go. Adrian looked at me, dazed. Your solo exhibition? His eyes darted around, searching for something, and finally landed on a painting in the very center of the gallery. My heart trembled slightly. I vaguely remembered, back when we first got together, how my normally reserved self was pestered by Adrian. When my Louis becomes a famous artist, who's going to be in the first painting of your first solo show? I knew what he was getting at, but I wanted to tease him. Who could it be? What? It's not me? How could it not be me? It's you. It will only ever be you. And now, Adrian stood in front of that centerpiece painting, tears streaming down his face. But the person in it wasn't him. Ryder, worried Adrian might cause trouble, rushed over. When he reached the painting, he froze too. The painting was huge, covering half the wall. The background was a dark, gloomy night without a single ray of light, reflecting the artist's bleak, self-imposed isolation at the time. A black night, a black bridge, a black motorcycle. Even the clothes were painted in shades of gray. The only spot of color in the entire painting was the young man on the motorcycle. He was smiling with wild abandon, his red hair flying in the wind, like a fierce flame lighting up the night sky. He was the only light that night and the only light in the painting. Ryder turned to me stiffly, his lips trembling, unable to form words. I, who had just been thinking we shouldn't move too fast, sighed, took a step forward, and gently hooked his pinky with mine. I know it's a little fast, but maybe you're willing to accept this confession of mine. His answer was a searing embrace and a passionate kiss. The other visitors seemed to have realized that Ryder was the man in the painting. A round of enthusiastic applause broke out as everyone congratulated us. Only Adrian was left, kneeling on the floor, weeping uncontrollably, as if he had lost all connection to the world. The breakup after 7 years and meeting Ryder, it had only been a short 2 weeks, but it felt like half a lifetime. I knew so little about him, yet I was drawn to him in such a short time. He was different from Adrian. Adrian loved my aloof, cool demeanor. He was willing to get close to me, melt me with his passion, and then build a fortress around me, hoping I would stay just the way he first loved me. But when I didn't change, he called me inflexible, said I didn't know how to please him. But Ryder, he was like a wildfire. He burned so hot that when he got close, Everything around you started to burn too. Passionate, sincere, and aggressive, he was both dangerous and captivating. My brush flew across the canvas. Just thinking about Ryder seemed to set my work on fire, every second of inspiration intoxicating. Knock, knock. You promised me your time today. Ryder stood at the door, his eyes drooping. Even though I was the one breaking my promise, he never stormed in and snatched my brush away like Adrian would have. He just stood at the door, looking at you with a wounded expression, until you just couldn't ignore him anymore. Sorry, but I'm feeling especially inspired today. I tilted my head, begging for forgiveness. Ryder sighed and came over, nuzzling his head into my neck. You said the same thing when I came over yesterday. At his accusation, I smiled. I can't help it. Every day I know you, I'm filled with inspiration. Ryder's eyes lit up. His lips started to move restlessly against the side of my neck, his voice muffled and suggestive. You're too good at seducing me. I feel like I'm the one who's losing my mind over you every day. When did I ever seduce you? I tried to pull back, ticklish, but he grabbed my waist. You're always seducing me. I feel like a dog in heat right now, always wanting to pin you to the bed. Seeing that my studio was about to turn into a battlefield, I quickly grabbed Ryder's arm. Didn't you say you were going to show me a surprise today? He had nibbled my neck until it was red. He reluctantly got up and showed me his crotch. See? I wasn't lying. I'm super ready. I blushed and muttered, I'm going to wash my hands. I ran into the washroom, leaving Ryder standing there with a pout on his face. Ryder took me to a villa in the suburbs. The property was enclosed by a black fence covered in crimson roses. The stark contrast of black and red was like a beautiful painting. Ryder tilted his chin up, his voice laced with a hint of pride. Doesn't it look like your first painting for the competition? I turned to look at him. He had taken his helmet off, and the love in his eyes was like endless waves. My first competition was in my second semester of freshman year. Back then, I refused to be supported by Adrian, and my parents wouldn't help me with art school. My life was a cycle of part-time jobs and painting. I never considered it my darkest time. On the contrary, I felt it was when my spirit was most alive. The material hardship and the love Adrian gave me were a contradiction, yet they fused into one. When I handed the painting, burning, to my professor, his eyes lit up with appreciation. The brushwork is still a bit raw, but the emotion is powerful and full of spirit. It'll definitely place. That painting won second place. Even though it wasn't first, I was still very satisfied. It was a secret diary of my life, a record of my most important beginning. We rode the motorcycle into the courtyard, which was filled with red roses. In one corner stood a swing chair, surrounded by thorny rose bushes. That was my second competition piece, Protection, created after my parents came to the university and caused a huge scene. Then came my fourth and fifth pieces. Every single work I had ever submitted to a competition could be found in different corners of the villa. I fought back tears, trying to stay calm as I turned to Ryder. What about the third piece? Why is it missing? The third painting was of Lucky, my neighbor on the other side of the wall at the small diner where I worked after leaving home. I had to live in the dorms for college, so I couldn't keep him. I could only visit him whenever I had time. Until one day, I went to the diner and Lucky was gone. The owner said a young man had been visiting Lucky every day and loved him so much that he bought him. At that thought, I froze and looked at Ryder in disbelief. He reached out and stroked my head, then put his fingers to his lips and whistled. A pitter-patter of footsteps echoed through the yard, and a yellow and white mutt came trotting out. It paused when it saw me, then came closer and sniffed my hand. Then it started whining and rubbing furiously against my leg. Ryder wrapped his arms around me from behind. Do you like the surprise? My eyes were red as I nodded, stroking Lucky's head. I love it. I really, really love it. Ryder held me, his voice soft. Aren't you going to ask me anything? Whatever you ask today, I'll answer. Then who are you, really? How could you know my life so well, when I had never even seen you? We've met before. My confused expression was my only reply. One night in my sophomore year of high school, I was walking home from the art studio and saw a group of kids cornering a smaller student in an alley. Seeing the student get knocked to the ground, I immediately turned around, went into a nearby convenience store, and called the police. A few minutes later, I stood by the store entrance and watched the police take the bullies away. Just before I left, I saw an officer point in my direction while talking to the bruised and beaten kid. From that day on, my eyes were always drawn to you. I was the one who found you first, but that bastard Adrian beat me to it. You were in the same class. Me? You didn't even know my name. When I heard you fought with your family and left home to work, I took a bunch of money to find you. But when I got there, I saw Adrian holding your hand, and you weren't pulling away. Ryder's eyes were wet, like a puppy caught in the rain. I had no right to show up. Even if I had, you would have just seen me as a stranger or a creep. I felt like a creep too. Loving someone for 7 years, trying so hard to be near him, trying to make some kind of connection, only to watch him fall in love with someone else. His fingers slowly intertwined with mine. Louis, I'm actually a really bad person. So bad that when I found out Adrian might be seeing someone else, I was actually happy. Happy that, after waiting 7 years, I finally had a chance. But I was also afraid you'd be heartbroken. Felt like my heart was torn in two. When I heard you'd left, I rode all over the city looking for you. Do you know how scared I was when I saw you on that bridge? I was terrified you were going to jump. Tears streamed down Ryder's face. He buried his head in my arms, sobbing. I know you can't fall for me that quickly, but I was still so happy when I saw the painting. 7 years. I finally made it into your life. We're finally connected. I'm no longer just a stranger you'd walk past without a second glance. I stroked his soft, red hair and placed a kiss on his forehead. Why did you dye your hair red? He looked up, his eyes filled with a love so open it tugged at my heartstrings. I wanted you to be able to spot me in a crowd. My heart lurched. I wrapped my arms around Ryder's neck. Ryder, do you want to put a period at the end of those 7 years? His eyes trembled. He then picked me up, settled me onto the swing, and kissed me fiercely. His strong hand held the back of my head, and our soft moans mingled with the creaking of the swing. Hidden deep within the flowers, the swing rocked from morning into the afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dappling us with spots of light, until finally, like the night, everything fell quiet. The next time I saw Adrian was when I accompanied Ryder to a gala his father was hosting. The room was filled with successful business owners. When Ryder and I walked in side by side, my eyes immediately found Adrian, standing with his friends. He had lost a lot of weight. The suit on his once impressive frame now hung loosely. Ryder clicked his tongue in annoyance, then covered my eyes with his hand and whispered a warning in my ear. Keep looking at him and I'll wear you out in bed tonight. I chuckled softly and brushed my fingers against his palm. Is that a promise? He tensed up, and a blush crept up his face to the tips of his ears. He grabbed my wrist and started pulling me toward the stairs. Luckily, we were only halfway up when his dad sent someone to call him over to greet some guests, saving me from what was to come. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, I heard footsteps behind me. Louis. I turned around. It was Adrian, of course. Mr. Pei, can I help you? His expression was bitter. Took him a long moment to speak. Do we have to be so formal with each other? I was blunt. Sorry, but I have a new boyfriend. He's younger and a little insecure, so I try to be considerate. He froze. You two are together already? I thought you would have understood that at the art show. He was the one who got bored, who got tired, who fell out of love. Why was he acting like the heartbroken victim now? I frowned, feeling disgusted. His eyes welled up with tears, his chin trembling. Is there really no chance for us? Just as I was about to answer, an arm tightened around my waist. Ryder, like a protective lion cub, pulled me close, his eyes wary. There was never a chance. From the first day you wronged Louis, it was over between you. His boyfriend is me now. As for you, you're just a worthless bastard who doesn't deserve to be loved. Ryder pulled me away and dragged me into the restroom. He even remembered to put the out-of-order sign on the door. Ryder, He frowned and gave a cold humph. My boyfriend was angry again. You were so hot just now. His eyes lit up for a second before he turned his head away, pretending not to care, but his beet red ears gave him away.
Ryder, Ari, boyfriend.
I called his name, but he just kept his face turned away, his ears burning. Hey hubby. The word had barely left my lips before he spun around and pinned me against the stall door. His hands slipped under my shirt, roaming my waist. His lips traveled along my ear, his hot breath ghosting over my skin. His clear voice, now husky, repeated my name over and over again, full of devotion and focus. The bathroom door rattled in the otherwise empty room, a dull, rhythmic thud. It wasn't until the party was almost over that a very satisfied Ryder, his hand marked with my teeth, helped to wobbly me back home. A few days later, I was painting in my studio. The morning had been bright and sunny, but by the afternoon, a heavy downpour had started. I stood at the window looking out, worried that Ryder would get soaked riding his motorcycle to pick me up. Just then, my eyes met Adrian's. He was downstairs, holding a bouquet of flowers, completely drenched. He must have been standing in the rain for a long time. His clothes were soaked through, and his face was pale as he looked up at me. When he saw that I'd noticed him, a flicker of joy crossed his face. I pushed open the window on the second floor. A damp, cold wind blew raindrops onto my skin. I looked at the roses in his hand, my favorite, and leaned on the windowsill. Adrian, you chose this path. Why are you putting on this devoted act now? Don't you find it disgusting? His face went white, and he swayed, barely able to stand. Then, right in front of me, his legs gave out and he knelt on the ground. His voice was hoarse, and it was impossible to tell if the water on his face was rain or tears. I know I was wrong. Please, Louis, don't leave me. I'm begging you. The red roses fell from his hands, scattering and breaking on the wet ground. He knelt there, sobbing uncontrollably. In that moment, he looked just like the Adrian I first knew, but I still shook my head. You know me so well. You must have known I would never forgive you after you cheated, but you did it anyway. Adrian, you're not the only one for me. Seeing me about to close the window, he scrambled to his feet and yelled, Then how do you know Ryder won't be the next me? I paused. He seized on it, as if he'd found a weakness. You don't believe him either, do you? Ryder's even younger than me. Can you really be sure he'll love you forever? Louis, don't be a fool. Men always want something new. He'll be just like me one day. No one's an exception. I sighed and pushed the half-closed window open again. Even if he does become the next you, I won't regret my choice. Just like right now, I still don't regret meeting you back then. I closed the window, turned away, and didn't hesitate. Outside, the rain continued to pour, leaving Adrian standing there, his eyes empty. Why didn't you say anything? Ryder was standing silently at the studio door. I walked over and touched his hand. It was warm, not wet from the rain. You didn't ride your motorcycle? He didn't speak, just pulled me into a fierce hug, his voice firm and a little childish. I won't. I will never become the next Adrian. He got you too easily. He has no idea how hard it was for me to wait for 7 years. Louis, I don't want to make easy promises to you. So, can you give me time to prove it? I smiled and ruffled his red hair. I thought you'd officially been on the job for a while now. His eyes lit up. Yeah. When we got to the parking garage, I was surprised. Parked there wasn't his beloved motorcycle, but a sleek sports car. Why the new car all of a sudden? He opened the door for me, holding his hand over the top of the frame to protect my head as I got in. His tone was practically begging for praise. I can get rained on, but my man can't. Besides, motorcycles are still pretty dangerous. It took me long enough to finally get a boyfriend. I've got to take good care of my life now. My heart felt like it was soaking in a hot bath, warm and searing. Ryder, how could you like me for 7 whole years? His eyes sparkled. Probably because the person I met when I was young was just too amazing. One look, and I remembered him for years and years. I called his name softly. Ryder. Yeah. I leaned over and grabbed the collar of his shirt. He obediently leaned in. I want to kiss you. He froze for a second, then a smile spread across his face. My pleasure.